This forum is an online global meeting space that is offering you the opportunity to skill up and get ahead, and this, of course, from home. And yeah, connect here with like-minded go-getters from all over the globe, as we could see in the chat, and hear from our world-class HALT professors on the latest topics and trends. And of course, we have also workshops and other webinars. And yeah, just to those that are joining the first time, our virtual lab, I just want to give you a little bit of a background about us. So HALT has designed a school that looks to the future by focusing on developing your leadership skills and challenging you with your future-oriented curriculum. And of course, with that, you're developing a global perspective that only first-hand experience can bring to you. And we're currently offering an undergrad program, and we have also 5 specialist one-year master programs and a global one-year MBA, and of course, a unique flexible part-time executive MBA, which is really great. And if you want to know a bit more about these, at the end of our masterclass today, we have a short presentation for you prepared where you can get more information, and I will also share a link that we are talking later about. And today we are joined by our HALT professor, Michael McCarthy, to explore the topic of resilience with a positive side during challenging times. But before I'm handing over to him, let's have a look at the short video.
Are you sharing audio, Stephen?
Can everybody hear it? Sorry, I just paused it for a moment. Or didn't you hear it?
I didn't hear it. I think what I usually do is that I unshare, and then when I reshare, I click the 2 little buttons on the bottom left for audio.
Let me do that again. Sorry for that.
No worries.
Stop sharing. Okay. Oh yeah. Here we go. Sorry for the interruption. And here we go again.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you so much for Here we go. So I'd like to hand over to Michael right now. And please, Michael, feel free to share your slides. And yeah, all is yours.
Great. Thank you, Stephen. Welcome, everyone. Before I share my screen, I'll just do just a little plug for HALT. I actually started my teaching career at Harvard University, and then I had the opportunity to start teaching at HALT. And what I love about HALT are 2 things. One is that it's like being at the United Nations. Everyone is from a different country, and it's really, really interesting. And the networking and the global perspective is really amazing. For example, I'm teaching a global human rights undergrad class now online, and when we talk about human rights in different countries, we always have someone in the class that's from that country that can talk about their local perspective. So if you're looking for networking and really seeing and being a part of a global community, HALT's really a great place to study. So let's launch right into it. Let me just make sure that we can see my slides. So resilience with positive psychology during challenging times. What I'm going to be doing is pulling a lot of information from University of Pennsylvania's Master of Applied Positive Psychology program. This is basically the world-class center for information on the art and science of happiness. What I'm going to invite people to do, and Stephen's been helpful in the chat, is if you have a phone, open up your phone to the photo. Don't take a picture of that QR code, but just open up the camera, and that should bring you to a link to join the WhatsApp group, which is going to be part of our global community for this morning. And what we're going to do is that we're going to be doing some exercises in the chat as well as in WhatsApp. Here is our agenda for our brief class today. We're going to be talking about post-traumatic growth, which is the opposite of post-traumatic stress disorder. We're also going to be talking about benefit finding and what I call your 3 a.m. friend. This is actually a suicide prevention model. And when I created this last year, we actually got confirmation that we have prevented 1 suicide that we're aware of using this technique. So I'm going to share with you how to use that. Again, here is the QR code. Now, here's how post-traumatic growth works. So on the left-hand side of the slide, we have normal life. Everything's just going along fine. And then we have a traumatic event and things go downhill. We get depressed, we get sad, we start crying, bad things happen. And you actually have 4 areas that you can pivot from at that point. Now, the worst case scenario is succumbing to the event. So let's say we have a worst case scenario, someone very close to you dies and you become depressed and you never get out of bed. You lose your job because you stop going to work. You lose your home because you've lost your income and you just become this depressed person that never ever recovered. So this is called succumbing to post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, one step above that is still being within post-traumatic stress disorder, but you have what's called survival with impairment. This would be, for example, let's say that I was in a plane crash and maybe I have to fly for a living. Maybe part of my job is that I have to fly around the world. Well, now I'm still willing to fly, but I have panic attacks and I'm completely nervous about it. So now I would get a service dog and the service dog would calm me down. So I'm able to actually get on that airplane and fly, but maybe I have to take a calming medication, like a benzodiazepine, and I need to have my dog on my lap. So I'm surviving, but I'm impaired because I need the service dog and I need a calming medication to get through that flight. So that's what survival with impairment is called. Then what we have is what we typically hear a lot is resilience, which is basically recovering, where we go back to where we were. So, let's say that you were in that plane crash and you were freaked out. But over time, perhaps through therapy and support groups and maybe some journal writing, or just as time passes, you find that you don't need the service dog, you don't need the calming medication. Let's say that someone very close to you passed away, and you had that mourning period, but, over a year or two, you got over it and, now you're fine. So this is called recovery through resilience. But what I want to share with you today is what's called post-traumatic growth. This is actually thriving. And what's special about this is you have a traumatic event, and because of that traumatic event, and only because of that traumatic event, something really good came out of it. And I'll give you an example of a personal experience with me. In my mid-20s, I started a money management firm on Wall Street. It went very well. I retired when I was about 36, and I didn't have to work for the rest of my life, so that seemed to be okay. I retired in 2004. Well, 4 years later in 2008, the market crashed, and I had a lot of money with a guy named Bernie Madoff, who basically embezzled about 90% of my net worth. And that was awful. It was depressing. It was sad. It was super scary. So now I was actually going from having more money than I could spend, actually looking at a homeless shelter because I couldn't afford to pay my mortgage. Well, because of that event, I went back to work. And I was really bored being retired because I didn't have a purpose. It was really actually quite depressing. It sounds really good, but it was really pretty bad. And had that bad event not happened, I would have never gone back to work. And I didn't want to go back to Wall Street. I did not want to have a transactional life that was so focused on money. And I decided, I just need to have enough money to get by. And I want to do something that I'm really passionate about. And now I'm a teacher. So if I had not had all my money stolen, I wouldn't be here today sharing with you one of my greatest passions, which is teaching people scientifically how to be happier. So what I want to encourage you today is to think about an opportunity through coronavirus to actually have a post-traumatic growth experience and thrive because of what has happened. Now, we've all been hit with some negativity because of this. However, it's how we handle it that's going to be important. And I'm going to share with you tools today on how to thrive and grow out of coronavirus. So the science behind this is called benefit finding and benefit reminding. Tennant and Affleck actually have some good scientific work on what are called coping strategies. You know, it's not, a situation is not good or bad. It's how you interpret it, and it's what you do with that situation. So we're going to share with you some coping strategies. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do now is to go into WhatsApp. I prefer WhatsApp because that's something that you can refer to later. The chat is going to be ending at the end of this. So if you were able to go to WhatsApp, and I'll ask Stephen to put that link in again, to do the group exercise. If that's not accessible to you, please go to the chat. And what I want you to do is to type in, what benefits have you found during coronavirus? Now, here's a picture of a tree around Chestnut Hill Reservoir near my house. And I used to be an amateur photographer, and you know, life kind of got in the way and I stopped taking pictures. But now I take a walk in nature for at least 2 hours a day. And I took this picture with my new iPhone 11 or 12, whatever number they're at. And it has this really cool wide angle lens on it. And to me, this looks like this really cool bonsai tree. And so now I'm photographing again because I have time to do that. So that's one of the benefits that I've found. And I've found several others, and I'm going to share with you my benefits to hopefully give you some seeds of thought so that you can find the benefits for yourself. Now, I love art. I'm not good at it. So this is actually Claude, this is a Monet. This is Claude Monet's wife. It's actually paint by numbers. And I painted this. It took me a few months, and I just have zero artistic ability, but I can paint between the lines. So now I'm actually an art forger. And what I think is funny about this painting is that the paint by numbers kit cost me $19 and the frame cost me $120. So the frame is actually worth more than the art itself. And now I joke around, if it weren't for coronavirus, I would not have become an art forger, because I have about 4 or 5 Monets, which he didn't do, but I just kind of painted into the lines. The next one is that I would have never become a bonsai farmer. I love bonsai trees. I think they're gorgeous. And I went to brusselsbonsai.com in Mississippi in the United States, and you can buy, you know, seeds, which will take you about 5 years before you can actually trim the tree, up to an 8-year-old tree. Some things are not terribly expensive. So I bought this tree. It's about 8 years old, with a little book on how to trim it. And it's just a lot of fun. I really enjoy it because it allows me to show some creativity. And I only have to trim the tree, you know, every 2 weeks. So it's not too high maintenance. And then I live alone, and I'm not seeing people. So I decided to adopt a cat. And when I got this cat, my only requirement was the cat has to be super affectionate. So they said, would you mind adopting an adult cat that has feline leukemia? And I said, that's fine, because not that many people would want a cat that's going to have a short lifespan. But I said, as long as the cat's affectionate, I'll take him in. And he looks like a leopard. So I called him Leo. And just to remind myself that, you know, when I got him, I've called him Leo Quarantine. And this is his favorite seat, which is right next to this pillow that I got when I was teaching at Holt London. And he looks like a king. So now I've called him King Leo Quarantine of Brookline. And you know, he's super affectionate. He keeps me company. Had I hadn't had coronavirus, I wouldn't have gotten a cat. So I encourage you to type into the chat, and I'm taking a look at it now on my phone. I see some people putting in, you know, more learning. Yeah, Coursera is a great place to learn more things. YouTube, I'm actually reviving my German by doing Duolingo 5 minutes a day. So far it's working. So now let's move on to some people that might be experiencing anxiety. One of the issues that I had found when I started working at Holt is I felt that the students had a higher level of anxiety on the Boston campus because, one, they're undergrads. So they're 18, they just became adults. They just came to the United States and they've lost their support network, so they're alone. And it's also something new. You just started college, so lots and lots of changes. Humans aren't very comfortable with change, and I noticed that there were higher levels of anxiety, but I didn't know if it was abnormal or normal. And I was very anxious in college. So let's take a look at some research about anxiety and how we cope. The data shows that actually 63% of college students in the United States have overwhelming anxiety in a 12-month period. That's 2 out of 3. That's most of you. So if you're nervous in college, welcome to the club. You're kind of normal. This is Dr. Marty Seligman. He is the father of positive psychology, and he started the Master of Positive Psychology program at the University of Pennsylvania. And positive psychology is really the science of happiness. And so a lot of people talk about being happy. So let's take a look at some actual research. Forbes magazine was looking at the richest Americans, and they surveyed them, how happy are you? And they gave you a scale of 1 to 7, and the richest Americans, and we're talking billionaires, were at 5.8. So some people would think, oh, they're going to be at a 7.1. No, they're at a 5.8. Why? You take money for granted after a while, and you have a pretty complicated life. You know, you actually have a lot of people that want your money. You can be victim to kidnapping, robbing. You have incredibly complicated taxes. So it's not all great. I mean, it's good, but it's not a 7. It's actually a 5.8. But now let's look at international college students, who most of them are not billionaires, 4.9. That's less than a point away. That looks really good, doesn't it? However, life is relative. They're actually closer to the happiness of a Calcutta slum dweller, 4.6 to 4.9. How could that be? And why is a Calcutta slum dweller only about 1 point lower than an American billionaire? Well, what it comes out is it's community. It's having friends and having relationships. And we're going to be talking more about that. And this is what the researchers showed about actually being happy. You know, how does it work? Some people just seem happy, and some people just seem pretty unhappy all the time. Well, about half of your happiness is genetic. You can't control it. It's your lot in life. You're either happy or you're not. But that's only half. Now, the other half is something that you can change. 40% is your internal state of mind, which is how you interpret events. We actually did a benefit finding exercise. Some people say this coronavirus is the worst thing that ever happened in the world and life's awful. That's how you've decided to take a look at it. But other people have said, you know, hey, this is a really good opportunity to learn how to cook, learn more things, get closer to my family, watch my child grow up, sleep longer, not be so worried about what I'm wearing, wear really comfortable clothes because no one's looking. So that's where 40% comes in. However, most people focus on the 10%, which is circumstances. Do you have money or not? Are you living indoors or not? Do you have access to clean water or not? And these circumstances, if you don't have minimum living standards, it's actually going to cause unhappiness. However, once those standards have been met, the ability to have more of that isn't going to make you happier. For example, it could be pretty unhappy if you don't have a refrigerator and a stove in your home, because you can't have access to all the delicious, healthy foods that you could have because you don't have a refrigerator or a stove. Once you get that, once you get the refrigerator and the stove, great, a very big bump in happiness because now you have more access. But what if you had 3 refrigerators and 3 stoves in your house? It's not going to make you any happier. You only need 1 of each. So this is where, in the circumstances, you need that 10%, but a lot of people go a little crazy and they say, well, you know, more is better. You only need 1 car. You don't need 10 cars. But a lot of people go crazy and they get more of the same thing. And this is what we learn about positive psychology. Enough is enough. Really, the focus needs to be more on how you're interpreting things in your internal state of mind. And that happiness movement has actually evolved into a new theory called well-being. And PERMA is the latest research model. And if you take a look at this slide, happiness and well-being is really a constellation of 5 items. Having positive emotions on a daily basis. Is there something on a daily basis that's putting you in a good mood? Doesn't matter what it is. The E is engagement, and this is where you lose track of time. where you just get so involved in something that time goes by really quickly. For me, painting, I lose track of time. I paint for a couple hours at a time. I listen to an Audible book, and I just get totally absorbed in that. Positive relationships. Are you surrounding yourself, whether it's digitally or in person, with people who love and support you, as opposed to drag you down and say nasty things? Positive relationships are incredibly important. And then there's meaning. You know, does your life have a purpose? Are you on this earth for some reason to do some good while you're here? Having a purpose is incredibly important, which is why I got depressed when I was retired. I didn't have any meaning. You know, I had plenty of money, but it was just really boring. You can only do so much. Working again and being a teacher has given me huge meaning, and I absolutely love it. Next one is accomplishment. You know, this could be something as big as winning the Nobel Prize, or it could be something as small as winning a video game. For example, I'm rebrushing up on my German with this Duolingo app, 5 minutes a day, and you know, they have this little bell that dings that like the king's approaching, you know, oh, you got 10 in a row, right? And then I get these little badges like, oh, you won 10 points. I mean, 10 points that aren't going to do anything for me, but they make me feel good. So your accomplishments, whether they're large or small, are actually meaningful. Now, I want to share with you now a 1938 study from Harvard. It's actually the longest study that Harvard ever did. And I'm going to ask you to go into the chat now, just the chat, not WhatsApp, because I'm looking at the chat. What is the one thing that you think leads to a healthy and happy life? So please type into the chat, what's the one thing that you think leads to a healthy and happy life? And while you're typing in there, I'll tell you a little bit about the study. Okay, love, contentment, meaningful work, great. This study was only men. Because at the time Harvard only accepted men, and also be mindful that in the 1930s, people were pretty conservative. So a conservative male, so the study is actually biased on that end. And I'm seeing some really good stuff in here: sense of fulfillment, happy wife, happy life, consistency, sense of purpose. So let's take a look at the answer. It's close relationships. So the chat got it. It's more than money or fame. And what I find really fascinating about this is that in 1938, at Harvard, a class of all men, the focus was money and fame. But at the end of the day, when they really looked back and reflected on their life and said, you know, what made it happen, it was close relationships. And what's even more interesting about this is that this was a longevity study. So the people that died and fell out of the study didn't have the close relationships. So these people are quite old right now, and this is the data that's coming up. So regardless of what your income status is, or how you're regarded in the world, whether you're famous or not, really it's love and friendship. And you can choose your own family. You know, yes, you were born into a family, but you can choose friends who are as close to you as a family. We're all able to do that. So fortunately, access to happiness is accessible to all of us, and it's close relationships. So I have found, being a workaholic, that I have started, based on this study, really valuing my friendships more and finding more time for them, as opposed to saying, well, I got to get work done first, and then I'll go out with you. And now I flip that. Hey, if there's an opportunity to go sailing and it's a sunny day, I'll do my work later. And that's been a big shift for me, because I was raised with a very strong work ethic, and I've had to shift that over time. Now, I encourage you to take out your phones or do a screenshot of this. This is a perma wheel, and basically the way you look at it is the middle of the circle is a 0, and then you take a look at each pie slice. So for example, let's say authentic connections and relationships. If you look at the end of the blue chip on the bottom right, you see R10. That means that you're scoring a 10 on relationships. So between a 0 and a 10, you make like a little mark on where you are on relationships. If you go to engagement, the purple one, you see at the bottom of the purple triangle is E10. So between 0 and 10, where are you on engagement? And you're actually going to build a little wheel. And as you fill that in, I'm going to ask you, you know, does your wheel roll or not? So where are you? And what you can do is just kind of connect the dots. So let's say that you're at a 5 on relationships. So you from 0, you'd make a little mark right about here. And then you're just going to bisect the line like this. Now let's say on engagement, let's say that you're a 10, you're going to make a line just like this. And eventually you're going to have this sort of wonky little wheel. And the question would be, does your life roll? Does it work? And where you're on the low end, let's say around here, that's where you need to focus more on meaning. Let's say you're really high on engagement, you're good there. So this will allow you to see, where am I thriving and where do I need to do some work? So now next for the chat, this is another good guessing game. What do you think is the number one thing you can do to increase your well-being? So let's say you're not having a great day. What's the number one thing you could do to get a really quick bump on your mood? Sleep. Okay. Meditation. Be kind to others. Dance. Oh, I love dancing. Dance, food, breathing exercise, walking, exercise, physical activity, listen, coffee, music, moving, running, sun, running, meditation, laughing, spirituality, sing, talk to a friend, writing, shower. All these are great and all these work, and one person actually got it. Practice something, yep, keep going. So here is what the science shows us. It's doing a kindness for someone. It's doing a kindness. It's the most reliable bump in happiness you can do. So what I encourage you to think of, what is something you could do that would be really kind for someone else? It's an unexpected kindness, so perhaps you have an opportunity to do a surprise for someone. So within the next 48 hours, I'm going to invite you to do an exercise that's going to help you get happier, and it's going to make someone's day at the same time. Find one expected kind thing to do tomorrow and just do it. And it doesn't have to involve money. I have to say the most meaningful things I've done for my friends is to give them a handwritten postcard and talk to them about specifically why their friendship is so valuable to me. And, I'm a guy, I was raised in the 60s, kind of conservative. It's kind of hard for me to get that touchy-feely. So I have a hard time saying it to your face, but I can write it down on a postcard, and then I go to the mailbox, and it's a little hard to throw it in, but I throw it in there. And when I did it, I was really surprised. About a year later, I was at a friend's house for dinner, and on his refrigerator door was a postcard that I recognized. I wasn't sure where it was from, and it was my handwriting. And he kept my postcard, and it was the only thing that was on his fridge. And I thought, wow, that impacted him. So it's really important. And by the way, handwritten notes are so rare these days. People love it because it means that you really spent some time. So I would suggest doing something like that, or whatever idea kind of comes to your own mind. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do is type into the chat, how many people, and I'm looking for a number, how many people could you call at 3 a.m., middle of the night, and tell your troubles to? How many people can you do? So just type into the chat. It could be 0, could be 1, could be 5, could be 100, 1, 4, 3. Yes, now this is pretty normal data. We're looking at single digits. That's normal, that's fine. I see someone's got, I saw 2 10s in here. Myself, yeah, certainly you can talk to yourself. Okay, beautiful. This is something that I created about a year ago. And when people are having a hard time, they need to talk it out. There's an old Irish proverb that a problem shared is a problem halved. And when people are having a hard time, and I mean like a really hard time, between really bad moment, all the way up to contemplating suicide, a lot of people feel like they're a burden, and they don't want to call and reach out for help. That's just kind of comes with the package. And if you have someone who you are willing to have them call you at 3 a.m. when they're having a tough time, I invite you today to reach out to all those people and say, I'm your 3 a.m. friend, that I know if something goes really tough for you, and you might not feel comfortable picking up the phone thinking that you're going to be a burden. You're not. I want that phone call. I'm your 3 a.m. friend. When we did this exercise last January on the Boston campus, about 4 months later, I got an email from one of my students, and he said he prevented a suicide. He had called a friend who he saw was in trouble, said, I'm your 3 a.m. friend. The friend called and said he was considering suicide, and instead he decided to pick up the phone. And so we have one more person that's still on this earth because of this. So this works. So if you have someone who you really care about and you're willing to take that phone call, but they don't specifically know that they are your 3 a.m. friend, make it really, really clear. Send them that text or email and let them know. Don't assume that people can read your mind. That's why I have the little mind reader up on the slide. A lot of times we make assumptions. Oh, they know they can call. No, if you haven't explicitly said it, please don't assume that. It's really important. Now let's take a look at a 2017 study of 48,000 college students. Over 2/3 of them have experienced deep sadness, loneliness, overwhelming anxiety. Actually, 12% have considered suicide, and only 19% have been like, no, I've never felt lonely. I've been fine. So you can see it's really the rare person that's doing just fine in that college survey. And the question we wanted to look at is, why? It seems like such a big number, and college could be a really cool time to have a great experience. You're meeting so many people, you're learning all these new things, the world has just opened up for you. It's a time to just have pleasure and savor it. Why are we so anxious? And so the University of Pennsylvania was trying to figure it out. And here's what they found. It was social media was actually increasing depression and loneliness, which was weird because it's supposed to connect you. So why, with this digital connection, are we actually getting more depression and loneliness? And here's what they found. It's the like button. They found that with less social media, there was less social comparison, less depression and anxiety. And it's the like button. So in the WhatsApp group, I encourage people not to comment on other people's shares. For example, if you say, hey, that was a really great idea, the person that didn't get, hey, that was a great idea on their share might say, hey, no one likes my idea. So people can be pretty sensitive. And I haven't been that much on social media until I got to Hult. And when I did start this WhatsApp group a year ago, we had about 90 people coming into the group for the first talk. And afterwards, I started getting notifications that people had left the group, because the talk was over. The WhatsApp group was just there for the day. And it hurt my feelings. I thought that I was being personally rejected because people were leaving the group. And then I thought, oh, I get it. It's not personal. But it was my WhatsApp group. And I see John has left your group. Mary has left your group. I'm like, oh, they don't like me. But this is what happens. So this is where we get pretty sensitive. And I do find it's interesting that we allow strangers to dictate our level of self-esteem and self-worth. I fall prey to it too. But what I'd encourage you to do is just be mindful that that like button might be causing you more trouble. When you think about it, not that many people put their bad days on social media. Usually it's the photoshopped version, everything's looking great. And there's a line I learned years ago that people's outsides look a lot better than their insides. So I hope this gives some perspective that if social media is dragging you down, maybe take a vacation from it or put it in perspective that maybe your self-esteem and your self-worth can come from yourself and your close friends who really know you, not strangers on the internet. And I just invite you to think of that. It's just something for your consideration, simply a suggestion. Now, here's something that can actually scientifically proven to help people lower depression and increase well-being in under 6 months. Now, humans just naturally are negative. That's how we survive. For example, if we were, in the cave, we're cavemen, cave women, and the tiger comes in and we said, oh, pretty kitty, we would have had our head bitten off. But instead, we did fight or flight. We either killed it or ran away. So we have a negative bias for survival. But we can get out of that. So for each night for the next 7 days, just simply write down 3 things that went well today and why. The why is really important because it shows you what your strengths are. In 6 months, the odds are heavily favored that your well-being will increase. So now we're going to pick up the chat again on WhatsApp, and we're going to share with each other in this community today, because right now we're a family for for 45 minutes. What cool resources would you like to share with people in WhatsApp? This is my best friend, Shelly. This is a picture of her. I actually uploaded this picture to a website in China, and they sent me paint by numbers. So I'm going to make her portrait for her birthday on September 8th. Now, here's the QR code and the website for that. It costs about $50. It's a little bit pricey. Paintnumbers.shop takes about a month to get it. So I'm in the United States. This was in China. It takes a while to have it come. But this is what I want to share with you. If you think that Paint by Numbers and maybe uploading a really cool photograph of a friend and making a portrait for them, or just some picture that you like is really cool, I'm going to share that with you. And I don't get a commission. I have no affiliation with this company. but it's making Christmas presents and birthday presents. So I want to share that with you. And what I invite you to do is, are there some cool things that you've been doing that you'd like to share? YouTube videos that are funny, maybe like free yoga classes. Please pop into the chat or into WhatsApp some resources that you would like to share with the group so that other people can take a look. One of my favorite movies, Crazy Rich Asians, I think it's great. It's not Shakespeare, but it's really good. Another Netflix one that I love is a series called Hollywood. BritBox is a really cool app. It's basically the British Netflix. Poirot and The Royal is also a good show. So feel free to just share, resources that you think are like really, really cool. And right now we're ready for Q&A. So I'm going to ask Stephen just to open up the mic and tell me who's out there and what can I answer? Feel free to just ask anything.
Yes, please. So everyone down there, you have a Q&A box. So if you have any questions, please type your number, your questions in there, and we can have a look what questions we are going to find.
Oh, what's my take on toxic positivity? Yes, this is not a class about everything's great and we're just to ignore that, bad things happen. Toxic positivity. It's not real. We want to be real about stuff. When someone dies, that's sad. When bad things happen, that's bad. Please acknowledge that. We can't be happy unless we acknowledge the flip side. That sometimes we have a day. So be realistic, but also acknowledge that when something really good happens. So I do encourage people not to do the toxic positivity, because that's not real. We want to be real with life. So I really appreciate you asking that question. So Lorenzo says, you've mentioned that you managed to switch from being excessively work-driven to giving importance to other activities as well. What are your suggestions to achieve that? Stop comparing yourself to others. Stop listening to all that heavy messaging that tells you what you should do. I think when you get a should out there that doesn't feel right for you, ignore it. What I love about coronavirus is I realized, and I study this stuff, I realize how much I do for other people, dressing up for other people, cutting my hair a certain way, wearing certain clothes. With coronavirus, I'm not getting a date. So I have walked out of here, bad hair day, looking pretty bad and feeling great, like my really comfortable, like fuzzy shoes, thinking, okay, everyone's got on a mask. I got a mask. They can't stop and say, you look awful, but I feel great. So I think really, doing things for yourself. And there's a wonderful book called The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem, which can really help you. If you feel that your self-esteem is not where it needs to be, and this kind of does pop into the self-esteem issue, it starts to give you some tangible exercises on how to work with that. Is a good state of happiness necessary to be a good leader? I would say yes. There's actually a book. Let me just pop this up for you. It's called The Happiness Advantage by Sean Achor. I'm actually want to teach a class at Hult. I'll just keep this up. I want to teach a class at Hult, Positive Psychology for Corporate Culture. If you can get the people in your organization happier and have greater well-being, then you're going to have a larger ROI, return on investment. You're going to have better teamwork, and you're going to have less people quitting, missing meetings, less trouble. So the more that you can bring in some positivity, that's great. But really what I would say is better for a good leader, more so than a state of happiness, would be emotional intelligence. So Daniel Pink has done some good work on that. So I would actually focus more on emotional intelligence than I would on happiness. Are there any mind exercises we can do to become more positive? There's one that I really like. There's a course called, it's on Coursera.org, The Science of Happiness. A Yale professor does it. She has an 8-minute meditation where you just sit and review all the wonderful things that have happened in your life. And when I did it, I forgot to hit the timer. I put on 8 minutes, but I forgot to hit start. So I was going for like a half an hour, and I realized, oh my God, all of the great things have happened were never things I owned. It was always a traveling experience. And from that, I decided I want to get a summer job in Singapore, because when I lived in China, the expat community was so wonderful. People just willing to meet, go hang out. If we had a great time, great. If it didn't work out, well, we gave it a try. And I find them more friendly than people in Boston. I actually have made more friends in China in 3 months than I've made in Boston in 25 years. And from that meditation, I decided I might consider moving to Asia because I just had a really good time with that. The self-esteem book, that was 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem. What if people need validation from social media if they're influencers of some sort? You know, when I was a money manager, we were ranked first in the world for 10 years, and we had 1,200 clients. And I just lived and died by the sword. If I made you money, you loved me. If you didn't make me money, you said really nasty things. And your self-esteem is now in the hands of strangers. So if you can remove yourself from that sort of validation, or at least put it in perspective, just be like, look, it's a numbers game, you know, 100 people like you today and 400 didn't, you know, tomorrow. It's really hard if you can get your validation from yourself and your close friends who really matter. But I do understand if you're in the business, that could be an issue. How to deal with negativity, especially expressed by family members. Great organization called ACA. If you go to Amazon, Google the ACA Red Book. It's all about family dynamics. ACA is an international organization. It came out of Alateen, Children of Alcoholics. ACA stands for Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. I don't think the name really represents what it is. It's all about family dynamics and how you can have a healthy life. I'm 53 and I still have stuff from my childhood that's still popping up. We all do. But this is a way to understand, you know, this is how my family worked. You know, I inherited the family dynamic. It's playing out in my adulthood. And the more you can understand it, and I think the ACA Red Book that you can get on Amazon or other sources is really, really good. And again, you know, if people are being super negative in the family environment, they're probably suffering. Sure, they're annoying you at the same time. But a lot of people that are super negative, they're not having a good day either. And it can be hard to remember that. How do you find meaning if you feel completely displaced to everything that you have been doing? Could you rewrite that? I don't know if I'm understanding that. How do you find meaning if you feel completely displaced to everything that you have been used to doing? Regarding meaning, I would take a look at, let's say that you're doing something, you know, that's supposed to have some kind of meaning. Let's say, okay, I'm a teacher. You know, what meaning do I get out of that? It's really 2 things. I love making PowerPoint slides. It allows me to be creative with the formatting, and I really enjoy that. And I also really like being with undergrads where I see them in future classes, where like 2-3 years down the road, and I watch them grow, and I kind of feel like their dad. But I don't have to like be their dad. And it's cool. And I'm like, wow, you know, I've helped shape life. That's really cool. So that's the meaning that I take out of it, even though some people might say, well, you know, I get a salary or it's something for my resume. So maybe taking out of what you're doing for a job and really taking out the particular special meaning that really means something to you. Divyang says, can you suggest some cool resources where we can start or begin learning art or painting at least an hour we can contribute a day? Paintbynumbers.com. If you just Google paint by numbers, there's also, you can go onto YouTube and just Google beginner painting. There's tons of painting lessons that are going to be for free on YouTube. And, you know, a lot of art materials are free. When I started, I actually started with abstract art because I thought, you know, I'm so bad. It looks abstract. You know, no one's going to say anything. But I would Google around probably YouTube and paint by numbers. And it's really interesting with paint by numbers to see how images come up. I mean, you would never think. And a lot of abstract art I learned came from artists who actually had cataracts. They had cloudy vision. And that's why the paintings are fuzzy because they couldn't see. And a lot of abstract artists, since they were older, they could see far but not short. So they had really long brushes. And so they didn't actually brush really close. They were really far away because their vision. So there was actually some interesting optics there. What best practices can you recommend to promote positive psychology for employee well-being in the workplace? Again, I think the happiness advantage is going to be a good one. There's also there is a Harvard Business Review article. Let me see if I have it. Yes, here we go. This one, Harvard Business Review, The Value of Happiness, How Employee Yeah, how well-being drives profits. And this is the January to February 2012, you can't really see it, bro. January to February 2012, Harvard Business Review, hbr.org, The Value of Happiness, and it's by Sean Achor. So it's basically the summary of his book. You can also Google free book summary, The Happiness Advantage, and I think it's about 9 pages long. But if you appreciate this stuff, it'd be great if you bought his book off Amazon, because I'm sure he spent a lot of effort doing that. From anonymous attendee, what's your best set of tips to maintain happiness while managing the effects of a multi-traumatic period where the trauma comes back very sporadically between thriving and recovery periods? Caregiving for a partner who is very ill, lost his job, got retrenched within the same period, jointly experiencing challenges of living, working overseas, managing. Okay, for that, if it were me and I'm not you, I would go to a support group. I have found that going to groups of people and just being able to share, what's going on for people who are also going through the same thing. So perhaps online, there would be maybe PTSD online groups. AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, has a ton of online resources, and whether or not alcohol is a part of this situation, you can still go to AA meetings, and a lot of what they talk about is not alcohol. A lot of it is just, how do I deal with my stress? How do I handle all these things that are just coming at me, and you start to learn coping mechanisms, and you are able to share. But I would probably look for an online PTSD support group. They have women only, they have men only, they have LGBT. So there's all kinds of different groups. Just find the one that would resonate with you. And if there's a group that doesn't fit for you, try another one. I actually like the support groups in Australia, just because I like accents. So an Australian accent, I think, is really charming. So I kind of like what they have to say. Again, from Divyang, what's
Michael,
your answer?
I don't like to interrupt you, but we're getting towards the end.
We are, okay.
of our time.
Send it to the WhatsApp group and I'll answer
Exactly.
them there, okay?
Yeah, so that's what I would have said. So I have a link I wanted to share with you all. So if you have any questions, you can go over there later. But before we're dropping out, we have also a colleague of mine joining here that wants to talk a bit more about health itself. So at that point, I can see so many questions. Please go later to that page and connect with us. This said, Michael, thank you so much for the session.
And I just want to say hi to my best friend, Rashmi Vashik,
Sure.
who I haven't seen for 10 years, and she just popped in. So Rashmi, I love you.
Lovely. This is great to see. Welcome. And yeah, thank you for this insightful session. Yeah, lovely to having you, and having you again in the future, hopefully. And yeah, by this time, I would like to hand over to my colleague who is here with us.
I'm here. Hi, everyone. And yes, thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Professor. Was very, very interesting, actually, something which is very important in this time of the year that we're also living here. And as Stephen just mentioned, I would just go through a few points just about HALT, International Business School. I know that we have many participants to this chat, so some of you potentially are interested in our postgraduate programs, some other to our undergrad programs. So I will just cover a more general presentation about what are the main points about HALT and as a school in general. What are the perks of HALT International Business School? So I will share my screen. Let me just start. Can you all see my screen? I guess I just need one.
Good.
Yes, very good. So also in this case, like I will go through all of my presentation, but feel free to just type in questions as well, and I will be happy to answer at the end. Just very quickly about myself. My name is Stefania Giannoulidis, and as you can tell probably from my surname, I'm half Greek, and as you can maybe tell from my accent, the other half is Italian. So I'm 50-50 Greek classic Italian, very Mediterranean. And I've been working with HALT in the enrollment team now for almost 6 years. And I work with students coming from Europe and Central Asia in the postgraduate team. So mainly I work with master students. And as I was mentioning earlier, I would like just to give you a general understanding of what the school is. We had the chance to listen to one of our professors, which is the best way to get to know HALT. So I would also let you know a bit more about what are the pillars of the school as well. And I would like to start with something that we are very proud of, and namely our triple accreditation. So you may know that HALT is triple accredited, which and only 1% of the business schools in the world have this triple accreditation, and HALT is actually the first business school in the United States who got this triple crown that we call. So having this triple crown status is of course a great honor for the school, and we are very proud we achieved that, even especially if you think that HALT is generally a very young business school. So full of energy and the will to change and to evolve. And this is one of the reasons why we were awarded actually this triple crown. And if you look into the rankings, of course, I know that every one of you who is choosing their master's program, bachelor or MBA are looking into that. So I would for sure advise you and encourage you to go and check into this website of The Economist, the Financial Times, and Forbes, and etc., so that you can see the full list and just not look at the. You can see a bit of a general picture. I just highlighted here a couple of numbers that potentially could be interesting for you. You can see, for example, in The Economist, our MBA, EMBA is the 53rd worldwide. For the Financial Times, we have the 53rd best masters in management, 8th for diversity, for example. So all of these rankings are for sure something that you can have a look at. And another very nice point that I would like to mention is also this EMBA MBA Innovation Award that we have been awarded a couple of years ago now. So this is also goes in line with what the school is. So a school that is trying to innovate and gets closer and relevant for the business world. So some years ago, basically, we have decided to just send out a survey to all of the different companies to ask what they need and what they are missing into the employers that they hire. So into the fresh graduates and into the people that join the companies. And what the surprising answer is that what they missed was actually to get students that knew about soft skills, so that potentially they were ready to start the job straight away. And this is why we have changed the curriculum in order to be ready to tackle also these challenges. And this is why also we were awarded the MBA Innovation Award. So very briefly, I am aware that you all of you are know what are the programs that we're offering, but just as an overview, we do offer a Bachelor of Business Administration and then 1-year master's programs. It's important to know that they are usually 1 year, but you could potentially add a second degree. So in 18 months, you could get 2 master's degree, 2 masters of science, starting from the most general international business, that as you can imagine is international management. And then we have also 4 specialized master programs. So international marketing, finance, business analytics, and disruptive innovation. As I was mentioning before, you can also combine 2 of these programs in order to get 1 degree and 1 second degree. So in 18 months, you could get 2 of these master's programs as well. We also offer a 1-year MBA program. So for all of you who have more years of working experience right now, and you're ready to jump into the next steps in your career, maybe the MBA could be the program for you. Our MBA requires at least 3 years of full-time work experience, but any background is very welcome. This is something which is good for all of our programs. Really want the class to be diverse. So feel free to reach out to us for more questions specific about your backgrounds, but we are happy to welcome anyone coming from many different backgrounds into our class. And last but not least, we offer also an executive MBA for executives that don't want to actually leave for one full year their countries. And we recently have launched also a virtual MBA option, which would allow every professional who cannot leave his or her country throughout this program, throughout this moment, or do not want for other reason, to just go through this program completely virtually. So this is a general a description of our program. I'm aware of it. So what I would recommend you is just to feel free to, first of all, type down your question into the chat right now. But also, as soon as you download a brochure, I'm sure that someone from the team will reach out to you, ready to answer your questions. Probably someone who is speaking your own language, since we have people from the enrollment team scattered all around the world. And we really want to keep in contact with everyone who would like to start an application even before you do start this application. We really want to speak with every prospective student and see if you could be a good fit for the school as well. So just like reach out to us, and we will be very, very happy to answer any particular question that you may have. But now let's talk about the pillars of the school. So I told you already earlier today that I would not be going through the details of the program, but more about the school in general. And of course, HALT is a business school, so business, it's one of the points, but we are also focusing a lot on three other main aspects. Three are the pillars of HALT for us. So the world, the future, and you, of course, main and last important point. So at HALT, you will learn about the world. And how can you learn about the world? First of all, you can be immersed in diversity. So you can see here, this is one of the pictures taken into one of our cohorts. I'm happy that I can recognize there a couple of students. It's, of course, as you see, like this already looks pretty diverse, but if you look into the numbers, you can see that we have over 145 different nationalities who are represented across all of the programs. And not only the school in general is so it's so international, but also the classes. So it's important to know for you that we have actually a capacity for the different nationalities. So we cannot have more than a certain amount of students coming from the same country in the same class. And by so doing, the program stays really diverse. And also many schools have those many nationalities, but maybe the percentages are different. So many schools, probably you have seen, they have a 60% student from the US maybe, and then the 30% is divided among the other countries. When it comes to HALT, we have the highest nationalities that we have in class is less than a 10%. And then all the rest comes to 5%, 4%, 3%, 2%, 1%, and then 0 point something percent for all of the remaining nationalities, which is very, very nice. So 122 different languages spoken by the students and 45 countries represented by the HALT faculty, which is also incredibly interesting because also our professors are rotating around and are coming from different backgrounds. They are and from different countries as well, so that you can learn from many ways of doing business. Gaining international in businesses, international experiences is for sure possible through our global campuses. I know that now you are possibly thinking that it's not an opportunity to travel yet. Still, I would like just to mention that our campuses are ready to welcome you on campus. Of course, we will abide by the rules and we will make sure that everything is in place to start safely this fall. We also have some option, of course, to offer the opportunity for anyone who cannot travel on campus to start virtually, but our faculty, our campus staff, our student services, and etc. are getting ready for the intake as normal and come on campus. And I would like to show you briefly where our campuses are, starting from Boston, which is our first campus. that was like founded, like the first HALT campus is actually there, and it's actually our biggest campus as well. So we have just heard from Professor Michael that Boston is one of the cities with the most, where the students got the most anxiety, but hopefully this will not be the case for you guys. As you can see there in the arrow, in the red arrow, you see our campus. In Boston, for example, is in the Cambridge area. And if you look into San Francisco, it's basically also in the very city center by one of the piers. This also just to mention that all of our campuses are very central located. The main point here for us is that we want our students to be there where the business is. So we don't have a campus which is somewhere in the countryside, but it's really in the city in the center of the city, so that, for example, when you are done with your class, you can go and have an internship in the next company, which is probably close to where we have the campus. London here, you can see our campus as well in the very city center. And also, if you notice on my on the left, there is this the Instagram basically page for all of our campuses. I would definitely suggest to follow the different groups for the different campuses, depending on what is your main interest, but you could follow all of them as well, because it gives you a great understanding of what is going on there. So we will post about everything that is happening on campus, professors, students, hackathons, business challenges, and etc., so that you can get a real feeling of how things roll at HALT. And then we have Dubai, also one of our main campuses, where any one of you who is interested in getting this experience can for sure select to start your MBA or your Master of International Business, for example. And finally, we have two rotation campuses, one in Shanghai and one in New York. So as you can understand, having the chance to study into 6 global campuses gives you for sure a great opportunity of gaining a very international experience. And by so doing, we have covered somehow the first pillar, so the word, and we can go into the second one, which is the future. So at HALT, you will learn about the future. What does this mean exactly? So we are aware of the fact that in a bit, actually, according to STEM, of course, this is just an estimate, but it says 40% of the US jobs are estimated to be automated, but by 2030. So we need somehow to get ready for that. So we need to be ready to tackle the challenges that are already there for us, and that you can that are present for all of the businesses, not only for the new businesses but also for the existing businesses. So at HALT, we really want to explore the risk and the opportunities of these new technologies, and we want you to teach you somehow what are these technologies and to help you to understand them in order to make good use of them once you will be out there into your next job opportunity. You can for sure experiment and learn about them through our nano courses, for example. As you can see here in this slide, I have left here some of the examples of the courses that you could potentially take: blockchain, cybersecurity, robotics, autonomous vehicles, so or virtual reality. So all of these technologies are existing already and are also very well applied by businesses. So it's very important for any one of you who would like to be relevant in the business world afterwards that you know how to implement those technologies. And of course, we will not go into the technical side of them. So it's a business school. So we will not teach you how to create a robot, for example, but you will learn about the application that we can have in the business so that you can be ready to use them as well in your business, or to suggest to use them if you will be a consultant, for example, in one of our business. Also, talking about the future, I would like to briefly mention HALT Prize. Maybe some of you have heard about it. Now it's a student competition that is probably the biggest nowadays around the world, and it's very connected with social entrepreneurship. So basically every year there is a topic that is announced, basically by Bill Clinton actually, who is sharing like one of the challenges that we need to tackle in nowadays world. Usually are very general problems, And we want the students of all of the different universities to team up in teams of 3 or 4 people and come up with a business idea that could potentially solve this challenge. And the team that is winning the HALT prize is winning actually also $1 million to implement the actual idea and to become a proper startup and a proper business. The topic for the 2020 challenge, for example, is building startups that have a positive impact of our planet with every dollar earned. So as I was mentioning before, a very general topic, so that leaves the chance to everyone who wants to give it a try to actually participate and to come up with the best idea. The world is changing very fast, and of course we cannot think that once we are done with our bachelor's, with our master's, with our MBA or EMBA, we cannot think that we will be done learning forever. So I also feel like I always want to go back to school, and luckily at HALT we have this opportunity to offer one free elective every year from every alumni of the school. Actually, this year also HALT staff got the chance to take one, so I'm very happy that I will take one elective as well this summer. It's a great opportunity because there are always new technologies. Business is changing, and maybe in few years you realize that you want to learn a bit more about a particular strategy, a particular problem, or gain a bit more like knowledge about a particular field. You can just go back to school, go back to HALT and take one elective for free. And our alumni network is also very big, over 23,000 alumni at the moment. And it's great. Actually, something that I always like to share is that we are doing events for prospective students. Well, not now, but we cannot at the moment. We are doing everything virtually, but generally speaking, we are doing events for every student in many different cities. And usually we bring, for example, a professor to teach a class, and the idea is that some of us from enrollment will give a presentation about the programs, same more or less that I'm doing right now. And what I think it's amazing that every time that we have such an event, at least half of the attendees are alumni that are just coming back because they love to network with HALT people. So I think that this is amazing because it makes you, first of all, understand how happy in the end they are, and how the network is so bound, which means that, for example, when you will start your program at HALT, maybe you can find a partner for your business and you can start a startup together, for example. And we get to the last pillar, and maybe the most important one, because of course in the end a master program or an MBA program is always an investment for the person, so you are investing on yourself. So it's of course very important to learn about yourself throughout the whole program. So self-awareness is a very important point, and many of us are not aware of what are they good at. So what we're doing at HALT is that we help the students be aware of what are they good at. And how do we do that? There are many different ways, but the most important point is that we really have this practical approach. So we gain hands-on business experience. We have live client challenges. We have case studies. We have professors coming from the business world. So somehow these are professionals that bring into the class their own experience, and students can learn from that. So of course, we have the books to support us, but we learn by doing. That's the best way to also understand if you like marketing. You cannot know if you like marketing just reading a book about marketing, but maybe if you work on something a bit concrete, you do an internship in the marketing field, then maybe you can get a better idea. So we have for sure coaching and personal support. So every one of you would have a personal career advisor. You can go to this person whenever you want. But on top of that, we are organizing career boot camps, for example, and we have global speakers coming on campus. We're organizing networking events and many different workshops. It's very important for us, of course, that you can jump into the next step of your career, and we want each of you to be prepared for that. So you will learn also how to create a successful CV and how to do a job interview. So we will be doing mock interviews for you for depending which field you would like to get into. So all of these tips that are useful, and somehow sometimes university just jump. So soft skills for us is very important, and we make sure that when you will be out of HALT, you are ready to be a good leader in international environment as well. And last but not least, before going into my question, I would like just to mention that there is still chance for you to apply in case you are not in you are not confirmed yet for the school and you are still considering if to start a master or an MBA or a bachelor program next year. Our deadline is actually on May 28th. And I would like just to remind you that the step how to apply are very simple, and you would always have a personal advisor helping you throughout the whole step. Once you basically create a profile online, one of us will reach out to you already. Since there is an application fee to be paid, we don't want somehow that you waste your money in case you are not really the right fit for the school. So for sure you will have an assessment before even starting your application, and once you do so, we'll start collecting all of the different documents. We'll invite you to a personal assessment interview, and once everything will be done, you would get to know about the admission decision, and you can decide if you want, if you can, and if you want to start the program with us this fall. So we are ready for that, and HALT has been, like as I was mentioning, has been like also creating some alternative methods for all of you that potentially on the first day of school cannot be on campus. So we will run also classes virtually for anyone who would like to maybe stay at home an extra 1 or 2 weeks before actually moving to London, to Boston, to San Francisco, to Dubai, and this would not be a problem, of course. So we need to be disruptive since this is a particular situation, and we are ready to do so. It's one of the characteristics of HALT, to be flexible and to change according to what is changing in the business world. So we would be ready for that. So last but not least, please feel free to connect with us. So we have several channels I mentioned before. Instagram, we have also featured campus groups for our students, so anyone of you who is already confirmed knows it. And then we also have a very nice chat with our HALT ambassadors, so feel free to reach out to our current students and ask them directly how their experience was. So this is the best way to get to know if this is something that you would like to do yourself as well. Okay, this was everything from my side. So if any one of you has any question or would like to know anything more specific, I'm very happy to help you with that. Let me see.
Yeah, so if you have any questions, please write it in the chat, I would say. Let's go over 2 questions because we're already pretty much in. Otherwise, I would say, please go to our website, and there we can have a bit more personal conversation if you're booking in a slot with us, and you can get more information. Do you see some questions?
I saw
right
one,
now?
yes, that was like about the 100% online MBA. Basically, yes, so the question is there 100% online MBA? Yes. We have recently launched this virtual MBA, which would give you the opportunity to study your MBA online the whole time. So it's from minimum 18 months, maximum 24, basically. And you can study from home, take the classes online during the weekends, twice per month. So yes, we have just launched this opportunity as well.
Okay, great. Then I would say thank you, Michael, that you joined, and thank you, Steffi, for the session today.
Pleasure.
I hope everyone that joined as well, you had a very great time. Any final remarks?
I'll just see you all at 5. I'm excited to see you.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining today. A recording of this webinar about our whole session today will be sent next week to you.